Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. So great to be with you this afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. So this week we have Patrik Sandin calling in from Shanghai. And as you can see on the screen there, we have some awesome people coming up in the next 7 weeks following this. But before we get Patrik up on the screen, as usual, I have a few words from some of our community members that they've shared about Patrik. So I'm going to just go through those before we get Patrik on screen. So the first one comes from Antonio, and he just says, Patrik is a professional full of purpose. He is able to uniquely enable exponential tech innovation, guided by sustainability and regeneration knowledge that is strongly based in science. His experience to articulate Swedish and Chinese cultures represents a second virtuous duo. Next up, we have from, and it's coming up here a little bit slowly, but from Paul Epping, he a little bit poetic here, just silence, no words, thinking. Then there are words, bridging the unseen, slowly crossing the gap between the gap when meaning appears deeply. Having met Patrik in Shanghai, our conversations reflected deep insights. Then Bangkok's confirmation, listening to Patrik, every word is weighted, makes sense. I listened. Thanks, Patrik. Then next we have from Sherry. I really enjoyed working with Patrik as a fellow coach on an exciting ExO work sprint in Thailand. He has a great coaching style and brings lots of valuable experience to his work, including his passion and knowledge in sustainability, in-depth experience working in China, and a strong interest in exponential organizations. I would welcome any opportunity to work with Patrik again. Then we have from Len. He just said, Patrik is truly a global leader and business builder. I admire his experience in Europe and Asia with leading practices that are well grounded in research. He is an amazing wealth of knowledge in the attribute of autonomy, which we collaborated on a little bit, and generous with his time and knowledge. And then lastly, we have this one from Lars. Patrik and I share a deep and decade-long interest in the Chinese market and the blazingly fast technological development that has enabled the massive transformation of the country. I have had the pleasure of working professionally with Patrik in his core fields of interests, including digitization, sustainability, and corporate innovation. Patrik is an active leader who consistently shows new ways forward in the intersection of these critical topics. And we also had Trent, who wanted to send something through, and then Rob van Elfen, who just sent through this picture, and he said, Patrik, we need to do a hot pot soon. So, Patrik, welcome to OpenExO Live. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Kevin. I'm doing all right, thank you. As I mentioned to you earlier, I'm just catching a cold, so I hope the voice and the nose won't make my words too incomprehensible to people, but otherwise fine, thank you.
Perfect. So, Patrik, we always start off just asking people to share a bit about your history. How you have got to where you are right now.
It'll take much longer than half an hour, I think, which is the length of our call. But yeah, born and raised in Sweden, southern parts. I've been a management consultant my whole life now, or at least my whole professional life, which is more than 20 years. Started out with factory operational improvements, then worked with process design and change management and strategy at Accenture, and then post-merger integration, M&A types of consulting at Ernst & Young. Later came to China with a consulting arm of the Swedish government called Business Sweden, which is a kind of a trade promotion, market entry type of advisory organizations entirely to Swedish businesses to help them expand globally. And from there moved on to become co-founder of the Natural Step in China. So Natural Step at the time, a 25-year-old sustainability NGO founded in Sweden by Dr. Karl-Henrik Robert, and the Swedish king is the patron of the organization since the late 80s. So that was the first ever sustainability advisory firm in the world. And I got a chance to get the franchise for Greater China to work on that. And it just so happened that attending a first training with the Natural Step, the leader of the Natural Step Italy, later the international chairman, was one of the first graduates from Singularity University. And so in 2011, he introduced me to SU, and I became, completely overwhelmed, let's say, or inspired by the SU stuff. And that led me to meet Salim in Budapest in 2013. I think that was the first time he presented the Exponential Organization's idea before the launch of the book. And then later on, when I heard about the ExO Works, as it was called at the time, before it rebranded or branched out into OpenExO Network, I took the opportunity of joining that in 2016. So that's sort of my path to why we're here now. So.
Absolutely, and so I mean, a real early community member. Of course, you're based in China, and so how would you say that you promote ExO there, and how does ExO actually how's it even going there from a Chinese perspective?
I think it's interesting, and I think it kind of reflects the challenges of consulting in China in general. So if we look at the framework itself and the book, it had a really big, I would say, exposure in China. It was translated into Mandarin, and it has, I think, sold quite many copies, and it's well known amongst many business leaders here. But then when it comes to sort of the exponential transformation stuff, so the sprints that we in the OpenExO network are promoting as well, I think that's a harder sell here, partly because the Chinese are not used to buying consulting services in the same way. So if you look at the large consultancies like Accenture, for example, they would have as many consultants in all of China as they would do in a small country like Sweden, for example. So that kind of shows the difficulty of scaling consulting businesses here. So I think that's one side of the coin. But working and for me promoting it locally here, we've kind of merged it a little bit with the sustainability thinking, and I think we can talk about how that fits later. But that has been for many companies one way of embracing it in their transformation to be more sustainable and to then be inspired by the ExO framework to scale sustainable solutions more rapidly, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So Patrik, would you say that embracing the ExO model, many sort of startups are essentially doing it without necessarily knowing it, or as you've said, I mean, the book is quite well known. So the actual model, do you think that it fits well sort of in that Asian context, not looking at the consulting side of it, but actually just embracing the model within an organization?
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at, China nowadays probably has more than 50% of all the unicorns in the world, right? So there's lots of new tech companies, AI, blockchain, e-commerce, various types of platform, lots of platform plays around mobility and other things, right? So that's really booming, and they're scaling super fast. And I would say they're all using many, if not all, of the ExO attributes, right? So they're, of course, AI, algorithms driving the whole thing, dashboards tracking it. Their engagement is a very big thing here. Crowd, of course, right? So we have already in the first book examples about Xiaomi, which is probably the second or first handset, smartphone producer. And so they were known already back then for doing this, right? But I think a lot of other companies have copied or made use of similar things. So it's quite fascinating to see, and they're moving so fast. And I think even traditional Chinese private-owned businesses are and haven't been afraid of experimentation. So I think that's really something that is unique here. They just try things because it's, I would say, the only thing that may not be as used in terms of attributes here is the autonomy part. It's still a very sort of command control type of businesses, but with no middle layers usually. So it goes from the CEO and a huge span of control, and everyone else does what the CEO or chairman says or thinks, right? And so if the chairman wants to try new stuff, even if we're in the food business, let's start a space company or a car company, we're going to do that. And we spend a few billion on that, and well, maybe it works, maybe it don't work, but kind of quite courageous and bold business leaders here.
Okay, super interesting that you say that. I mean, obviously, you speak about autonomy there, and I think in the West, I mean, autonomy is an extremely vital attribute, especially with younger people. And putting you a little bit on the spot here, but do you think that the younger generation in China also feels that need for autonomy, or is it not really something that is as demanded because of the culture there?
Yeah, right. So I think they're used to not having autonomy actually, and if they sort of grew up in school here and in university, they're not even supposed to think or say differently from the teacher. So they would get good grades if they say exactly what the teacher has said at the test, right? But if they bring other viewpoints in, they might even if those viewpoints might be correct, they may not always be. I think they are quite used to that, and they're okay with it. But of course, we're seeing so many Chinese youngsters the last 20 years have been educated in the US, in Europe. They may have worked for 5 or 10 years, and then they're coming back. So they come back with slightly different expectations. So we are seeing I would say the early seeds of more autonomous, even there's even a movement around teal organizations, right, which is kind of the holacracy and even further in terms of freedom, autonomy, and spirituality in business as well.
Yeah. So maybe I move away from the, what is it called, 996 or whatever in terms of
yes, that's still the norm, yes. At least for the internet companies.
Absolutely. So I mean, Patrik, as you said, I mean, you started the natural step there in China, and sustainability is something very, very I guess I could say close to your heart. Mm-hmm. So how do you see exponential organizations and sustainability, sort of fitting together?
Yes. So I've been trying, I think, ever since being exposed to SU, and SU talked about, they had this grand challenges themes that they wanted to make sure that all the exponential technologies gets used to solve some of the grand challenges of the world. So that really made me passionate. And then with Salim and his book, Exponential Organizations, introducing massive transformative purpose, or MTP, as the North Star for companies, that also kind of hit home for me, right? So that's what we're trying to get companies to always adopt. I think in order for sustainability and the ExO framework to completely marry, it would require, I would say, deeper thought in the design of the new exponential initiatives that comes out from applying the principles or from the sprints that we're doing with companies. I think, but having been part of a number of sprints and then have insights into even more, I do see that sustainability naturally becomes part of the discussion in many sprints, right? Mm-hmm. Just because they have this MTP to do something good for the world or for people. And then that informs the thinking, but I think then we can be more granular in the in the design of the solution or choice of technologies, and make sure that it doesn't have unintended consequences, that it doesn't. So I quite often in my presentations show two bad examples of companies that are leveraging exponentials and EXO thinking in China. So one would be Mobike. You may know they went global. It's one of those bike rental companies, right? And they have a good story. They say, we're replacing cars, we're reducing CO2 emissions. Well, first of all, if you look into the numbers, most people who have cars don't take the bicycle instead and drive through a massive city like Shanghai for 5 hours to get to work. So they still use the car or a taxi. And then secondly, the model was not like Airbnb, even though they try to pretend we're like Airbnb. So it's sharing, right? But it's actually rental. So they had to produce new bicycles, and people don't treat those bicycles very well. They ended up in the river in Paris, most of them, right? Or cluttered. We see big graveyards all over Chinese cities now with these bikes, right? Because they get rusty, they get broken, etc., etc. And so that, of course, consumes a lot of energy to produce them and transport them and repair them, and then they get wasted very soon, right? So it's a completely unsustainable business model. So I worry when, and another example would be Luckin Coffee, for example, when suddenly they try to compete with Starbucks, and
Patrik,
to your home or to your office. So now everyone is ordering delivery coffee and wasting the one-time cup that it gets served in, etc. So when you try to marry, I would say, exponentials and the digitalization that brings these exponential trends in abundance with physical products and services, you can end up in a bad situation if you don't consider the whole business model and the externalities of it. I think.
No, absolutely. And Patrik, I know you know that. I mean, the version 2 of exponential organizations is currently being sort of put together with the community, and the angle of looking at trends beyond exponential organizations like the circular economy, like sustainability efforts, is something that I really hope is getting its voice, because people need to see how you can embrace the EXO model in a way that is good for the world. Yes, as you've just pointed out, there are some examples where you can you can use attributes perhaps not in the best way, and so we need to remind people that of these important things as well. Now, Patrik, I know fairly recently you joined Ericsson One, which is like an internal accelerator of Ericsson, right? In Shanghai. Can you tell us a little bit about how that goes?
It's a global accelerator. We work out of 3 hubs, the kind of head office in Stockholm, and then Silicon Valley, and then Beijing. That I'm kind of a floating member of the Beijing hub. Having done sprints with the EXO Works and by myself as well, I welcomed the opportunity when Ericsson reached out, because they had heard about my work in innovation here in China, and they told me that they are building I would say a very ambitious kind of edge style accelerator, where they work with entrepreneurs, so the 100,000 plus employees across the globe that Ericsson has, and a core team of now 35, soon 40 people across these 3 hubs. We support those entrepreneurs in ideating, in incubating, scaling, taking to market, and really building these businesses, and with the aim of creating game-changing new businesses for Ericsson. So the stuff that tends to be closer to core might become a new business unit or business area for Ericsson. but I would say the majority would most likely be spin-outs with joint ownership, perhaps by venture capital or others. And we're only aiming for unicorns. So that's also a challenging thing, right? So unicorn valuation, because in a big company like Ericsson, if you don't hit that $1 billion valuation type of mark within a couple of years, you're not really showing up on the radar screen for top management, right? So you don't get the attention. So I think that's the ambition. It's very ambitious. We have our own fund and kind of work as a kind of internal venture capitalists. So we select the ideas to fund, and then we fund them through various stages up to series equivalent to Series B rounds, perhaps before potentially it becoming a separate unit.
Okay, interesting. So now, of course, Patrik, as you've said, I mean, you've worked on a number of sprints. Oh, it seems like we just lost Patrik. He did turn his VPN off just before we started, so I hope the firewall didn't take hold of you, Patrik. Patrik, are you there again?
I'm back. Yeah.
Perfect. So no worries at all. So I was saying that having worked in a number of sprints, you know about the immune system, really looking to innovate at the edge. What are the main challenges? Not necessarily only for Ericsson, because you've worked with other organizations, actually doing that innovation at the edge.
Yeah, I think there are many challenges, of course, and one that comes to mind would be the immune system that Salim often talks about, right? So even though these edge accelerators, incubators might have the support, of course, have the support from the CEO or from business unit heads, it still can be a challenge to get exceptions from the kind of corporate rules and regulations of standard operating procedures, right? So having to go through, I had a client in Shanghai 2 years ago, a big German chemical plastics company, and they, just going through sourcing sort of stopped us from doing various things, right? Because it couldn't be done within the time frame of a sprint, or the fact that all the tools that we would normally use or recommend from ExO, right? So using Slack and others for quick social interaction, Google folders or shareable collaborative tools. Most of them are not approved by corporate IT. So having those constraints makes it a bit difficult sometimes, I would say. And then another challenge is getting sort of additional funding for the edge initiatives as they scale, because what we know from the 60s, the curves, right, the 60s of digitalization, when even though it's an exponential trend, when you're doubling small numbers, it doesn't seem to go anywhere or go very fast. And a lot of these, especially the platform business models, they are need quite much money for getting these scale effects, right? For marketing, for getting people to know about it, to sign up to your platform, and all of those things. And for a corporate that may be used to selling products and services and getting paid after 30 days, right? And then getting relatively quick to break even when they launch a new product in their existing channels, to go to a new channel that they haven't been before, and then having to have increasing spend or funding requirements before even having a chance of getting some revenue, that could be difficult sometimes to get approval for those kind of initiatives, right? So they might be stopped or pivoted because of that, and then you lose some of the exponentiality. So.
No, absolutely. And so with your current work, have you been able to inject some ExO thinking or thinking from the sprint methodology at all?
Yeah, slowly, I would say. In the projects or startups that I'm coaching, definitely. And now I have been tasked to design a batch model, cohort style. So far, Ericsson has been kind of taking on projects on an ad hoc basis as ideas get submitted, and we review, and a good idea gets selected and assigned a coach. But as we now have reviewed over 2 years since Ericsson One was founded, we have reviewed more than 2,000 ideas that has been generated internally, and then worked with probably close to 100 in ideation, and we're having now like 20 projects being incubated and scaled. And because of that, it kind of puts a lot of pressure on the organization in Ericsson One to manage this volume, and especially since we need to feed the pipeline as well continuously with new ideas. So I'm introducing the batch model, and that batch will be kind of similar to call it an innovation boot camp, or an extended sprint over a couple of months, where we take the startup founding teams from idea to first funding, maybe in 10 weeks or so, right? So similar, and there we will infuse some of the ExO thinking, and I'm also in the process of hopefully being able to set up kind of advisory tickets for the wider ExO community to support on these projects as well.
That sounds really fantastic there, Patrik. And so as we bring this to a close, as I said to you before, we try to keep it at 25 minutes, and we're going to hit half an hour. Anything you would like to just close off with for the audience as you say goodbye this evening for you?
Right. No, I would say everyone in the ExO community is so inspiring. Whenever you meet or get a chance to interact, I think we have all drank the Kool-Aid. We all have the same mindset in a way, right? Even though we come from different parts of the world and business, different experiences, etc. So I think that's amazing to be part of this network, and to be able to interact and learn from all of these amazing people. And so the message would be just keep being amazing, and keep doing good for the world, delivering those moonshots and MTPs. I think that's my aspiration as well.
Awesome. Well, Patrik, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you get some rest. Go to sleep. Probably it's in the evening there. But thank you so much, and we'll chat to you again soon, I'm sure.
Great. Nice talking to you, Kevin.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
So that was Patrik Sandin from Shanghai. Always a pleasure chatting to Patrik. It was great meeting him for the first time actually in Bangkok, I guess 2 years ago now. So the one thing Patrik did mention is doubling, and how when you double the first on the exponential curve, it always looks like zero. We're actually running a doubling challenge right now for the ExO economy. So if that's something that interests you, in the chat, I'm going to just paste a link. It includes a replay to the 3rd birthday of the ExO economy. So give that a watch and join the doubling challenge. It's a great way for you to understand exponential, and a great way for you to get involved in the ExO economy. So thanks very much for joining us today. We will end off just with a quick video about our foundation certification, and we will see you again next week.